10 years into our relationship, I landed a multi-million-dollar deal for my girlfriend's company, and she left me stranded alone in a foreign country. I thought she was planning a surprise celebration for me. But then I saw a post from her secretary's social feed. All I said was I wanted to see the sunrise, and Bella flew me back to New York to watch it over the Brooklyn Bridge. My boss is a rock star. Attached was a photo of the two of them, fingers interlaced. This time, I didn't chase after her demanding an explanation like I always used to. Instead, I tore up the contract and walked away without looking back. Ethan posted that picture at 5:30 a.m. There's no time difference between Singapore and New York, but the flight takes over 18 hours. This math didn't quite work, but the point was clear. Original text had a logical flaw here. Singapore-Shanghai is 6 hours, no time diff. I will adjust for flow and ignore the flawed logic, focusing on the betrayal. So, sometime in the middle of the night, my girlfriend, Bella, had ditched me to fly back home with her secretary. And what was I doing at that time? I was pulling an all-nighter, checking every line of the proposal and every document to help Bella land this very deal. I had helped her build this company from the ground up. The company was facing a crisis, so this project was critical. I was so stressed I couldn't even eat. And Bella was in the mood to hold hands with her secretary while watching the sunrise. I looked down at the freshly signed, still warm contract in my hands and suddenly felt like a complete fool. If she didn't even care about this project, why should I? I took a picture of the Singapore sun and posted it to my own feed. Some views are meant to be enjoyed alone. After posting, I hailed a cab back to the hotel. As soon as I got in the car, my phone rang. It was Bella. Did you close the deal? I looked at the signed contract in my hand and said calmly, I blew it. There was a moment of silence on her end. I knew I should have listened to Ethan. I never should have given this project to you. Hearing that, my hand clenched, and a dull ache spread through my chest. Listen to Ethan? That secretary didn't know the first thing about anything. He didn't even know what this partnership was about, and he had the right to comment. My team and I had worked ourselves to the bone for a week to get this contract signed today. But now I had no intention of giving it to Bella. I didn't say anything. Bella seemed to realize she'd gone too far and softened her tone slightly. Okay, what's done is done. Something came up at the office, so Ethan and I had to fly back early. Book a flight back too. Remember to file for reimbursement with accounting. Before I could say another word, she hung up. I slowly lowered my phone, staring out at the scenery. Suddenly, I was reminded of the year we graduated from college. Back then, I was first in my class in the computer science department at NYU. Job offers from countless companies poured in, but I turned them all down. I was determined to help Bella build her own company. My father disagreed, thinking I was just paving the way for someone else's success. My mother said that once Bella's company got big and powerful, younger men would flock to her, and she wouldn't be faithful to me. But at the time, I insisted Bella wasn't like those other women. I never thought that, years later, my mother's words would come true. But it didn't matter. Now, I was done with all of it. After getting back to the hotel and packing my bags, I tore the contract in my hands into tiny pieces and threw it in the trash. Then, on the way to the airport, I typed out a resignation letter on my laptop, word by word. For 10 years, I had poured my heart and soul into Bella and this company, but she never saw my contributions. She always thought it was her brilliant management that made the company thrive. Well, I was curious to see how long she could last without me. The plane was about to take off. I clicked send. As soon as the message sent confirmation appeared, I calmly closed my laptop. 18 hours later, I landed in New York. The moment I walked into our house and turned on my phone, Bella's call came through. I didn't answer. She called again. After it rang a few more times, it finally went silent. I calmly started packing my things when my eyes fell on the desk calendar on the coffee table. It was a gift from Bella when we first moved into this house. She had them custom made, one for every year from 2014 to 2074. She said she wanted to document every day of our lives together so that when we were old and gray, we could look back on our beautiful memories. But now, this year's calendar was still turned to last month's page. and the photos we used to add had become fewer and fewer since last year. I flipped the calendar to today's date, and just then, Bella returned. She strode in, her first words an accusation. "Oliver, what is your problem? You're the one who messed up, and I haven't even said anything to you, yet you're the one throwing a tantrum and resigning? You're not a child anymore. Don't you think making such an impulsive decision is ridiculous?" I knew long ago that Bella had no idea Ethan had made that post. Or maybe she knew, but she didn't know that I could see it. I looked at her coolly. "I'm serious. I've been working at this company with you for 7 years. I'm tired, and I want to rest." Bella froze, staring at me in disbelief. She probably expected me to jump up and start a huge fight with her, like I always did. I used to think I could never stay calm in the face of her abandonment and betrayal. But disappointment is something that builds up over time. This time, I truly didn't care anymore. Bella bit her lip, her attitude changing completely. Her voice softened. "Don't be like this, Oliver. Are you mad about my tone? The deal fell through. Can't I vent a little? I was just talking. I wasn't really blaming you." I ignored her, flipped the desk calendar face down, and walked past her toward the second floor. What right did she have to complain when she had contributed nothing? But it was as if Bella had finally found the reason for my anger. She grabbed the calendar and followed me. "Is this what you're mad about? I was planning for us to take a picture together in Singapore to put on it, but something came up at the office unexpectedly." I cut off her excuse. "You're overthinking it. I'm not angry. I just want to rest." Then I continued up the stairs to our room. Just as I closed the door, my 8 p.m. alarm went off on my phone. It was my daily reminder to make Bella her late-night snack. Back in college, Bella would get so caught up in her studies she'd forget to eat dinner, which led to stomach problems. So every night at 8 o'clock, I would go to a diner and buy her a light bowl of porridge. Later, when we started the company, she'd skip dinner because of work. No matter how late I got off, I made it a habit to make her a bowl of porridge at the same time. Rain or shine, every single day for years. It was time for it to end. I turned off the alarm, then hit delete, erasing the reminder that had been saved on my phone for nearly a decade. Bella didn't come into the room for a long time. I didn't bother wondering what she was doing. Instead, I took out my important documents and checked them one by one, making sure nothing was missing before locking them in a file bag in my drawer. Then I went to the walk-in closet. As far as the eye could see, it was mostly suits. Looking back, I realized it had been a long time since I'd worn the casual clothes I loved. I used to love putting together different outfits. But for Bella, for this company, I sacrificed my time, my youth, and even all my hobbies. I don't know when it happened, but my world had shrunk to nothing but work. Fortunately, I still had plenty of time left to experience life. With that thought, I turned and walked out of the room. Bella was sitting on the sofa, staring blankly at the calendar. I couldn't care less what she was thinking. I called out to her from behind. "Bella, I'd like the commissions from the deals I've closed for the company over the years, as well as my equity cashed out." As the words left my mouth, I saw Bella's expression shift instantly to one of shock. In all these years, I had never once asked her for money. On one hand, I figured we'd get married eventually, and all our money would be joint property, so there was no need to draw clear lines. On the other hand, I really didn't have many expenses. Thinking about it now, that must have been why Bella thought I would never leave her, and why she felt so free to hurt me without consequence. After I spoke, I turned to go back to the room, but Bella called out to me, her voice sharp with anger. "Oliver, what do you mean by that? Are you really quitting? Is it because we didn't take a picture in Singapore? Because I said I shouldn't have given you the project?" She still thought those were the reasons. I sighed softly. "Didn't you once say that if I wanted it, the entire company could be mine? I've worked my ass off with you for 7 years. All I'm asking for now is the money that's rightfully mine." The air in the room grew heavy. Bella put down the calendar and walked toward me, grabbing my arm as if desperate to prove something. "If I give you the money, will you stop talking about quitting?" Seeing her act so afraid of losing me, my heart clenched for a second. But only for a second. because I knew that every time I softened and forgave her, it never led to her changing her ways. When I didn't answer, Bella's brow furrowed even more deeply. After a long pause, she seemed to give in. Since you're tired, I'll give you a vacation for now. Let's not talk about quitting, okay? I didn't answer, only saying, just give me the money first. Bella looked at me with an unfamiliar expression, and her hands slowly loosened their grip on me. I turned and went back into the room. Bella didn't come back to the room all night. The next day, since I didn't have to go to the office, I slept in a little. I woke up to 2 messages. One was from my colleague, Zach. Oliver, our department is having a team event today. Are you free to join? The other was from a college friend. Oliver, I'm helping out with new student orientation at the university today. Want to come by this afternoon and hang out? I got along well with my department and was about to agree. Then Zach sent another message. Bella and Ethan will be there too. I frowned and immediately declined. No thanks, you guys have fun. Then I replied to my college friend and accepted his invitation. That afternoon, I put on some casual clothes I hadn't worn in ages and went to my old university campus. Looking up at the school sign, it felt like a lifetime ago. 10 years ago, as a freshman, I met Bella, who was helping with orientation. I recognized her instantly as the girl who had saved me when I was a kid. She didn't remember me, but she said it was love at first sight and pursued me relentlessly. Our relationship just blossomed from there. Lost in memories, I stepped onto campus. I couldn't find my friend, but I saw a couple taking wedding photos in the park. The bride was posing as the photographer directed, but her eyes, full of love, were always fixed on the groom. I froze for a moment, remembering a time when I used to dream of Bella in a wedding dress, marrying me. I had once jokingly asked her when she planned to marry me. She always looked weary and would say, Oliver, I can't give you a grand wedding right now. When the company is a bit bigger and we're more financially stable, I promise I'll throw the most magnificent wedding. Her simple promise of wait for me was enough to make me work my heart out. But Bella had long been capable of hosting a grand wedding, yet our wedding date was pushed back again and again. Now I didn't want it anymore. An expired promise has lost all its anticipation. I sat on a bench by the lake, and without realizing it, the sky grew dark. I was pulled back to reality by my phone ringing. It was my colleague, Zach, his voice hesitant. Oliver, could you come over? Bella's drunk. I sighed and got up to leave. Half an hour later, I arrived at the location Zach sent me. As I pushed open the door to the private room, I saw Bella, drunk and lying with her head in Ethan's lap. And Ethan was gently wiping her face with a damp towel, like a husband caring for his drunk wife. Seeing this intimate scene, I stood there silently, saying nothing. The colleagues from Zach's department were dead silent, afraid to speak. Zach forced himself to speak up. Bella, Ethan, Oliver's here. Only then did Ethan look up as if he'd just noticed me, apologizing sheepishly. Oliver, I'm so sorry. Bella drank too much, that's why. He gently shook Bella. Bella, Oliver's here. Bella groggily opened her eyes. The moment she saw me, she also realized she was in Ethan's arms. She shot up, suddenly sober. Oliver, let me explain. I cut her off calmly. I know. Your stomach acts up when you drink. I took out some stomach medicine I'd bought on the way and handed it to her. Take this first. Go home when you feel better. Bella took it, stunned. Without her having to do anything, Ethan immediately poured her a glass of water. For a moment, all eyes were on me again. I took out my phone, searched for a brand of stomach medicine, took a screenshot and sent it to Ethan. Ethan, she usually takes this brand. I didn't have time to find it today. Could you please make sure to keep some on hand for her from now on? Before I could finish, Bella's face paled, and she abruptly stood up. I looked at her, confused, waiting for her to say something. But after a few seconds, she silently walked past me and left. As if nothing had happened, I gave a slight smile to everyone in the room. You've all been working hard lately. Tonight's on me. Relax and have a good time. If you need more food or drinks, just order them. Everyone in the room was stunned. Zach was the first to speak. Thanks, Oliver. The others chimed in, except for Ethan, who was still holding the glass of water. I looked at him. You've had a long night too, Ethan. You should get some rest. Without waiting for his response, I turned and left. Outside, Bella was standing at the bottom of the steps, a slim cigarette between her fingers. I walked over to the car to start it, but she didn't move. After waiting a while, I leaned out the window. Are you going to get your own cab? Only then did Bella walk over, but her tone was furious. Oliver, what is wrong with you? I asked innocently, what's wrong with me? Bella was livid. You were never like this before. If you're angry, can't you just say it? I stopped her. You said it yourself, that was the old me. I used to be immature and didn't trust you. But now I do. I know you have boundaries, so I won't lose my temper and fight with you anymore. Isn't this better? Bella was speechless. Her lips parted slightly, but she couldn't bring herself to say it wasn't. I opened the car door for her. Come on, it's cold out. Let's go home. This time Bella got in. She didn't say another word to me the entire way home. I knew she couldn't say anything. I used to fight with her several times a month because she and Ethan were too close. Every time, she would accuse me of not trusting her, saying they were just colleagues and that I was overthinking things. Now she had her wish, but she still looked miserable. Back at the house, Bella threw a curt "I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight" over her shoulder and walked away, her face cold. I went back to our bedroom and had just locked the door when a call came in from an international number. Oliver, I heard you quit. Ever thought about coming to work for my company? I was a bit surprised. Vivian? Vivian Lynn chuckled softly. It's me. So what do you say? Are you going to accept my offer? I can't bear to see a talent like you get poached by someone else. Vivian was the CEO of a company in the UK I had negotiated a deal with. We'd gotten to know each other a bit since we were both originally from the same country. I asked, puzzled, how did you know I resigned? Vivian's tone was cheerful, almost proud. I've wanted to recruit you ever since our first collaboration. Of course, I've been keeping an eye on you. I told you back then that Bella's company would only hold you back. See? My words came true. Oliver, come work for me. Name your terms. Vivian's company was much larger and more prestigious. 3 years ago, when I was negotiating that deal on behalf of Bella's company, Vivian had indeed expressed interest in having me join her team. But I had started the company for Bella's sake. How could I have left her? 3 years later, facing the same invitation, my mindset was completely different. I thought for a moment. Vivian on the other end didn't rush me, she waited quietly. After a while, I took a deep breath. Okay, I'm in. Vivian laughed brightly. That's wonderful. Welcome to the team, Oliver. After hanging up, I glanced at the photo of me and Bella on the nightstand. I walked over, took apart the frame, and saw the words I had written on the back of the photo 5 years ago. Oliver and Bella will be together forever. I was so naive back then, thinking that what I saw was forever. I picked up a pen, crossed out the sentence, and wrote a new one underneath. It's all over. Bella, I wish you happiness. I thought Bella would give me the silent treatment just like she always did. But to my surprise, she made me breakfast the next morning. A fried egg, a slice of toast and ham, all assembled into a sandwich. Looking at the sandwich, I drifted off for a moment. When we first started the company, Bella and I lived in a basement apartment. Back then, the most luxurious thing we could afford was a sandwich just like this. She used to love cooking for me then. As the company grew more successful, Bella stopped cooking. Bella walked out of the kitchen. You're awake? Perfect. Come eat. I sat down obediently, but I suddenly didn't know where to begin. How did I used to eat this years ago? As I hesitated, Bella pushed a credit card across the table. There's $20 million on this. It covers all your commissions and equity dividends from over the years. I'm giving you a vacation for now so you don't have to come into the office. Just get some rest. I nodded, suddenly realizing that it wasn't just Bella who had changed over the years. I had too. Bella seemed to let out a sigh of relief and came over to put her arm around me. I was thinking we really haven't taken a proper vacation in a long time. You mentioned wanting to go to Iceland last time. How about we go tomorrow? Without waiting for my response, she took out her phone to book the tickets. I watched her quietly, wanting to ask if she wouldn't get bored going to the same place twice. 2 months ago, she said she was going on a business trip. But Ethan had posted on his social feed, with his location tagged in Iceland, together with Bella. Just as Bella was about to pay for the tickets she'd selected, I reached out and stopped her hand. I don't want to go to Iceland anymore. Bella's face stiffened for a second. Then where do you want to go? Let's go to France, I replied, looking away and taking out my phone. I'll book the tickets. Bella's expression softened. We've been to France so many times. What's there to do? But if you want to go, we'll go. By the time she finished speaking, I had already booked the flights. 3 days later, 2 p.m. Bella's phone pinged with the booking confirmation. She glanced at it, her expression completely relaxed. A moment later, her phone buzzed again. After reading the message, she grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Something urgent came up at the office. Eat your breakfast while it's hot. I have to go. I watched her leave, then opened my phone. I refreshed my feed. A minute ago, Ethan had posted a photo of himself drenched in the rain. The caption read, "Ugh, it suddenly started pouring, and I'm completely soaked. Why am I so unlucky? I wish a hero would swoop in and save me right now." It was followed by a crying emoji. Just then, a flash of lightning and a roll of thunder echoed outside the house. I calmly turned off my phone and threw the sandwich in the trash. That night, Bella didn't come home. I slept soundly. The next day, I woke up and started packing. It was only when I started packing that I realized just how many of my things filled this house. Most of them held the warmth of memories. The dim, old desk lamp from our basement days, which had seen us through countless nights of revising proposals. A Devil Ray phone charm, which we bought at the aquarium to celebrate landing our first client. A half-finished, hand-stitched leather wallet. A failed project Bella had given up on after boasting she would make it for me herself, admitting her hands were too clumsy. Photos, a silver ring I had made myself, plaster dolls we painted together. I placed them all into a box, one by one, along with my memories, my past, and my feelings, and threw them all away. When I stepped back into the house, the large space felt noticeably empty. Just as I was thinking it might be too obvious and she would notice something was off, Bella returned. She was carrying an exquisite wooden box. She walked to the dining table, took off her blazer, and smiled at me. "Oliver, look what I brought you." She didn't seem to notice that many things were missing from the house, and she began taking out plates one by one. "The stir-fry from Jade Palace. Your favorite." She thoughtfully placed chopsticks for me. "We haven't had dinner together in so long. Come on, eat." Food from Jade Palace. Once I was in the UK, I wouldn't be able to have it again. This would also be the last meal Bella and I would ever have together. I walked over and sat down. Bella put a piece of yam on my plate. Just as I was about to eat, my phone chimed. It was an offer letter from Vivian. She was a woman of her word. Not only did she offer me the position of vice president, but the salary was £20,000 a month. I paused, then clicked accept. Then I ate the piece of yam. "It's delicious." Bella smiled and served me more lettuce and lily bulbs. "If it's good, eat more. You seem to have lost some weight these past few days. After we finish eating, I'll go pack our bags." Before she could finish, her phone vibrated several times in a row. Bella glanced at it, then immediately picked it up and walked a few steps away from me. A few seconds later, she looked back at me, her face full of apology. "Oliver, I'm sorry, I can't have dinner with you. Our partners suddenly called a meeting. I have to go back to the office." She hastily grabbed her jacket, eagerly promising, "I swear I'll be back tomorrow afternoon to go to France with you." I watched her back and slowly lowered my arm. "Okay, you go." But as she was about to close the door, I called out to her instinctively. "Bella." She turned around. "Yes?" I slowly opened my arms. "Can I get a hug? For the youth we're leaving behind." Hesitation flickered across Bella's face, but she quickly made her decision. "We're like an old married couple. A hug can wait. We can hug as much as you want when I get back." With that, she left in a hurry. The door closed in front of me. I stood there silently for a moment, then sat back down at the table. This time, I ate every last bite of food on the table, a final meal to close this chapter of my life. After washing the dishes, Ethan's social feed updated again. I've been wanting to try this exclusive French restaurant for ages. Bella is the best. One phone call and we got a table without even needing a reservation. He sounded so eager, as if he was afraid I wouldn't know Bella was with him. I called Bella. She answered just as it was about to go to voicemail. Oliver, what's up? I was silent for a moment before speaking softly. Nothing, I just miss you. I just wanted to hear your voice one last time. Bella's voice was laced with a smile. I just left a little while ago and you already miss me? You're as clingy as ever. I'm still in a meeting, but it should be over soon. Could you do me a favor and finish packing our bags? I looked at the suitcase already sitting by the door. My voice was flat. Yeah, I've already finished packing. On her end, Ethan called her name. Bella immediately said to me, "Okay, I miss you too. See you tomorrow." I didn't respond, and she didn't wait for my response. She hung up as soon as she finished speaking. Maybe she should have waited for an answer. Words unspoken are not a promise. Then again, she never kept the promises she did make, so she probably wouldn't care about this either. I put down my phone. Just as the screen was about to go dark, it lit up again. A notification popped up at the top. "Dear Mr. Evans, your flight will depart in 4 hours." I calmly turned off my phone, stood up, and walked to the door, grabbing the handle of my suitcase. Bella didn't know that her ticket was for a flight to France tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mine was for a flight to London tonight at 1 a.m. From the day she left me alone in Singapore, I decided that she would no longer be a part of my life's journey. As I opened the door, a conversation I had with Bella years ago suddenly echoed in my mind. I had asked her, "What would you do if I left you one day?" Bella had looked at me with determination. "Then it would definitely be because I hadn't treated you well. If that were the case, you should choose someone else. And I would wish you well." I stepped out of the house and took a deep breath of the fresh night air. "Then wish me well, Bella. From now on, the road ahead is long, and I'm looking out for myself." Before boarding, I took out my phone. "We're done." I hit send and strode forward. It's time, I thought, to start my new life. After a long journey of more than a dozen hours, I finally arrived in London. Waiting for me at the gate was Vivian. "Oliver, welcome to the UK," Vivian said, naturally taking the luggage from my hand. "Vivian, thank you for taking me in," I said gratefully. "It's hardly taking you in. You're so brilliant. I should be thankful my company managed to snag such a talent," Vivian said happily. "Well then, here's to a great partnership." "To a great partnership." I smiled back at her. "Oliver, I've rented a small house for you near the office. Let me take you to see it now." "Okay." With that, she drove me toward the house. In the car, as soon as I turned my phone on, it started buzzing non-stop with calls from Bella. After I declined, it rang again. After this repeated several times, I blocked her number. The phone finally fell silent. When I looked up, Vivian was watching me with an interested expression. "Oliver, we're here." Was that Bella? I ignored her second question and just got out of the car to look at the house where I would be living. The inside was already clean, fully furnished, and neatly arranged. "You must be exhausted after such a long flight. You should get some rest. I'll come pick you up tomorrow to show you around the area." Vivian placed my luggage inside the door, handed me a set of keys, and left. She was right. I was exhausted. I went up to the second floor, lay down on the soft bed, and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, it was already the next day. I couldn't believe I had slept for so long. The phone rang. It was Vivian. "Oliver, time to get up. I'm taking you out to eat." I felt my stomach. I was indeed hungry after sleeping for so long. After a quick wash-up, I opened the door. Vivian was already waiting outside. "Have you been waiting long?" I asked apologetically. "I just got here," Vivian said calmly, opening the car door for me. In the restaurant, as Vivian and I were eating, Ethan's social feed updated again. "Bella's the best," taking me on a romantic adventure in Paris. It was accompanied by a picture of Bella's back. I was glad I'd bought Bella a ticket to France. If I had actually listened to her and gone to Iceland, Ethan probably would have wheedled his way into coming with us anyway. I closed my phone and silently continued eating my meal. Was that Bella's secretary? I looked up in surprise at Vivian. How did you know? Vivian's eyes curved into a smile, and her tone became cheerful. To recruit you, I had to keep a close eye on what was happening at Bella's company. My gloomy mood lifted at Vivian's words, and I let out a laugh. Bella and I broke up. After all this time, I finally told Vivian the news. Vivian had a look on her face that said she already knew. You broke up because of that secretary, right? Good riddance. It's Bella's loss for losing someone like you. I looked at her and just shook my head. How should I put it? Ever since the company got bigger and bigger, I had noticed that Bella wasn't as considerate and tolerant toward me as she used to be. It's just that back then, I was still deceiving myself. But now, I didn't want to lie to myself anymore. The difference between being loved and not being loved is just too obvious. Especially since I had once been so openly and unabashedly cherished by Bella. Seeing that I was quiet, Vivian didn't press me. You've just arrived in the UK. Take a month off to clear your head. I'm hoping you'll be able to come back fully focused and land more deals for our company. Okay. I responded with a smile. A month off? I really did need a break. Ever since I joined Bella's company, I had been working diligently every day, never daring to slack off. At a coffee shop, I was sitting alone, drinking coffee and waiting for Vivian, when a familiar figure walked over. The next second, Bella grabbed my hand. Why did you block my number? Why did you suddenly leave without a word? I tried to pull my hand away, but I couldn't break free. We already broke up. Who agreed to break up with you? Bella tried to pull me away. Can you stop being so unreasonable? A wave of bitterness washed over me. The old Bella would never have criticized me in public. I remember once, a classmate publicly pointed out that my pants were too flashy, and she immediately flew into a rage and got into a fight with him. At that time, she said, no one is ever allowed to criticize my baby. But now, she was shouting at me in front of so many people. Do you really think any company will want you now that you've come to the UK? You're not some teenager anymore. Bella was about to say more when Vivian, who had just arrived, cut her off. Our company wants Oliver. Bella's grip on my hand loosened as she turned to look at Vivian. I took the opportunity to pull my hand free. Vivian smiled at Bella. Oliver has already agreed to be our company's vice president. Who are you? What does my business with Oliver have to do with you? I'm his boss. Oliver is my employee. Of course, I have to be involved in my employees' affairs. The atmosphere grew tense. Bella tried to grab my hand again. I stood up and instinctively took a step back toward Vivian. Bella, the client's people are here to rush us. We need to go sign the contract soon. Ethan's voice came from the doorway. Bella didn't move, the standoff continuing. Oliver, let's talk later. I want to talk to you face to face. Just the two of us, okay? I thought to myself that I really did need to make things clear with Bella. Okay, I'll wait for you here. I turned and nodded at Vivian, not wanting her to worry. Bella shot us a look, her face ashen, then angrily pushed the door open and left.
I'm sorry, Vivian.
You got dragged into this because of me, I said apologetically to Vivian. Oliver, it's not your fault. That night at the coffee shop, the first to arrive was Ethan, dressed in a stylish suit with his hair perfectly coiffed. Oliver, if you were going to leave, why didn't you go further away? Now Bella's trying to win you back. You must be feeling pretty pleased with yourself. Huh? Ethan looked at me with resentment. I silently observed this man. Because of him, Bella had abandoned me time and time again, always taking his side. No matter how I questioned her, she always defended him. Logically, I should hate him, but my rational mind told me that if it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else. I calmly took a sip of my coffee, watching his face twist with anger. Ethan, Bella and I have already broken up. You don't need to see me as your rival anymore. I don't care what happens to Bella now. This relationship and Bella herself, I've let them go. After I finished speaking, I heard the sound of a phone dropping behind me. I turned to see Bella. Her face was pale. She ignored the dropped phone and stumbled toward me. Oliver, what you just said, is it true? I looked her in the eye and repeated my words, one by one. Bella, I don't love you anymore. She looked at me in disbelief, then suddenly let out a bitter laugh. Oliver, that's not a funny joke. My face was expressionless as I continued to look at her steadily. Bella, I'm not joking with you right now. I used to think your heart had just wandered off for a bit, that one day it would come back to me. That one day we would go back to how we were in college, with only each other. That you would be the same as before, with eyes only for me. But, Bella, I really don't want to wait anymore. You left me behind again and again, and I became hysterical again and again. I'm tired of this endless cycle. I think you must be tired too. My mind suddenly flashed back to a scene from the past. It was my birthday last year. Bella had promised to celebrate with me. We had just put the candles on the cake and were about to sing happy birthday when her phone rang. After that, despite my begging her to stay, Bella insisted on leaving. She said something urgent had come up at the company and she would be back soon. I waited and waited. I waited until the candles on the cake had burned out, but she never came back. When I opened my phone, I saw Ethan's social media post, subtly showing off his little victory. That's when I knew that the call had been from him. I angrily called Bella to confront her, but her explanation was always the same. She was just afraid I would overthink things. Yes, she said she was afraid I would overthink things, yet she did things that would make me overthink. She brazenly took Ethan on trips all over the country, openly enjoying the ambiguous flirtation with another man. So I've decided to let you go, to set you free. After saying this, I didn't look at Bella again and left alone. After returning to the house, I sent Vivian a message to let her know I was safe. Immediately, my phone rang. It was my mom. My heart skipped a beat. My parents hadn't contacted me since I had decided to work at Bella's company. Why were they calling me out of the blue today? With that question in mind, I answered the phone. Oliver, I heard from your Aunt Laura that you went abroad. What's going on? Weren't things going well for you at Bella's company? Did that wretched girl do something to wrong you? Hearing my mother's familiar, gentle voice, my nose tingled. Mom, I'm working in London now. I won't be going back to Bella's. I'll be home for the new year. It's been a long time since we've celebrated together. There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then she said, well, you take care of yourself over there. I will. After she said that, I couldn't hold back my tears. So, my mother had been keeping tabs on me and Bella all along. Even though I had been holding a grudge and hadn't been home for so many years.
Mom, I'm sorry.
It's always been my fault. I shouldn't have held a grudge against you and Dad and stayed away from home for so many years. The scolding I expected never came. Instead, I heard my mother's gentle sigh. Son, how much have you suffered all these years? You used to be such a proud child. Yes, I used to be such a proud person. Ever since I was a child, I was the kid other parents compared theirs to. No matter what, I persevered in my studies, always striving to be the best. If it weren't for Bella's sudden appearance in my life, I probably would have followed my original plan, joined my father's company, started from the bottom, and become a respectable urban professional. But then, because of Bella, for love, to satisfy Bella's ambition, I disregarded my parents' opposition and my friends' advice. I resolutely gave up the path my father had paved for me and went to work at Bella's company, starting from scratch, enduring condescension and disdain. At that time, I gave up all my pride, bowed my head, and bent my back, all to secure investment for Bella's company. Back then, I thought that every time I bowed my head and bent my back, it was so that Bella wouldn't have to bow to them. Back then, my heart and mind were completely filled with thoughts of Bella. I even dreamed of our happy future together. But now, what on earth did that wretched girl do to you? Tell me, and Mom will go get justice for you. Amidst my mother's concerned words, I dropped the bombshell. Mom, Bella and I broke up. This time I held nothing back. I told her the entire story of my years with Bella. After talking to my mom, I found out that my old friend Ben had seen me on the streets of London a few days ago. He told his mom, Aunt Laura, who then told my mom. Worried, my mom called me. I also asked my mom for Ben's address in London, wanting to catch up with my old friend in this foreign land. So, despite my eyes being swollen from crying after talking to my mom last night, I eagerly ate a quick breakfast and went to see my long-lost friend. And then Ben, who had been putting on a stern face because I hadn't contacted him for so long, couldn't help but laugh when he saw me show up with 2 giant walnuts for eyes. "Oliver, you've changed a lot compared to how you used to be." Ben and I were walking down the street when he suddenly turned his head and looked at me with a complicated expression. "How have I changed?" "For starters, the old you would never have come to see me looking like this." After saying that, he burst out laughing again. I thought, he's right. The old me, no matter what, always wanted to present my best side to others. I remember in elementary school, right before the new semester started, I got stung on the forehead by a bee, and it swelled up into a lump. The lump wasn't that big I could even cover it with my bangs. But I insisted on not attending the opening ceremony. Even when my teacher and my mom took turns trying to persuade me, I refused to leave the house. All because I had a lump on my forehead, an imperfection I couldn't tolerate. But Bella's company didn't allow for that. At that time, Bella's company was just a startup. Besides me and Bella, there were no other core members. We also couldn't hire many employees due to a lack of funds. To keep the company's systems running smoothly, no matter how late we went to bed, Bella and I had to be at the office on time the next morning to prevent any system failures from going unresolved and causing us to lose users. Over time, I let go of the things I used to insist on. What can I say? Time changes you, I said with a self-deprecating laugh. "Hi, excuse me, are you Oliver Evans from the class of 14? Ben and I were chatting when a girl's excited voice interrupted us. We looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young woman with delicate features.
I'm Oliver Evans.
"And you are?" After getting my confirmation, her voice became even more excited. "Oliver, you were a legend in our year. You were on the honor roll every single year. You were a role model for all of us underclassmen." "Oliver, I'm from the class of 16. I know you and Bella." The girl spoke faster and faster, her voice growing more and more excited. When Ben heard her mention Bella, his expression immediately changed, and he cut her off. "What do you want with Oliver?" She glanced at Ben's impatient expression and my swollen eyes, then scratched her head awkwardly. "Sorry, I just got too excited seeing my idol. I never thought I'd run into my idol abroad. If you ever need any help, you can contact me." Then she handed us each a business card and fled. Ben and I watched her leave and couldn't help but laugh. "That girl is really something," I said, then looked down at the card she gave me. She was a police officer from a precinct near my hometown. Surprised, I looked up again to find her, but she had already disappeared. Ben, however, suddenly turned serious. "Oliver, there's actually something you might need her help with." I looked at him, confused. "It's about that time you were almost kidnapped as a kid." "Yes, I was almost kidnapped when I was a child. That day, on my way home from school, a kind-looking old woman asked me for directions. I patiently helped her, but she led me into an alley and knocked me out. I woke up briefly at one point, but I was still groggy. I only remember someone holding my hand tightly, trying to wake me up, and a scar on the palm of her hand. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital with only my mother and the police by my side. Later, I was told that a good Samaritan, a young girl, had helped me. But that little girl was Bella when she was young. I told you that as soon as I started at the university." Ben shook his head. "I told you back then that it was too hasty to be sure it was her based on just one scar. But later, as I watched you fall more and more in love with her, I couldn't bring myself to bring it up again." I looked at Ben's serious expression. I remembered that day, during freshman orientation, Bella, who was helping out, offered to carry my luggage. When we got to the men's dorm, I took my luggage back and noticed a scar on the palm of her right hand. I was shocked and excited. I asked her, "Did you ever save a little boy when you were younger?" She just said that her childhood memories were very hazy. Could it be that it really wasn't her? I sat on my sofa at home, my mind still replaying what Ben and I had talked about today. And at the end, Ben's earnest words, "No matter what, it's best to confirm it one more time." The ringing of the phone interrupted my thoughts. I took out my phone. It was an unknown number. Oliver, I miss you so much. Can I pursue you again? I really miss you. Can you come pick me up? The background was noisy, but I could barely make out that it was Bella, a drunk Bella, mixed with the sound of a man crying. I said calmly, Bella, we've already broken up. Please stop disturbing my life. With that, I hung up. In the past, if Bella had said something like that, I would have been ecstatic, thinking that the heavens had finally smiled upon me and Bella had finally come to her senses. But now I just felt that she was bothering me, that she was a burden. I guess I finally moved on. Officer Miller. Hi. Could you help me look into a kidnapping case? It was in 2004, and the abducted child was me as a boy. I want to know who the little girl was who helped the police rescue me. Holding my phone, I sent a series of messages to Officer Sarah Miller. I waited nervously for her reply. A second later, a message came back. Okay, I'll do my best. Seeing that she had agreed, my tense body relaxed, and I slumped onto the sofa. I thought Ben was right. No matter what, it was best to confirm it one more time. I still had some time before I had to start work, so I decided to explore London and experience its culture. The only problem was that I didn't have my own car, which made getting around inconvenient. I was about to ask Vivian to recommend a reliable car rental company when she volunteered to be my driver and tour guide. Ms. Lin, aren't the company's shareholders going to have a problem with you always taking me out to play like this? I teased Vivian. Vivian didn't answer. She just looked up at the ancient castle beside us, then looked down at me. Oliver, do you know the story of this castle? I shook my head. King Edward VIII, the second king of the Windsor dynasty, proposed to the American commoner Wallace Simpson here. He was willing to give up the throne to be with this woman. And right now, I'm just accompanying a gentleman. I looked up at Vivian. Her eyes were bright and held a smile. I wasn't sure if I was misunderstanding something, but I wanted to make things clear. Just as I was about to speak, a familiar voice came from behind. What are you two doing? It was Bella. She looked at us in disbelief, wanting to grab my hand, but after raising it, she ultimately didn't. Bella, what are you doing here? I asked, confused. I just happened to have a client who wanted to visit here. I didn't expect to run into you, Bella explained. I've already said everything I needed to say to you last time. I frowned, really not wanting to talk to her anymore. All I wanted was to leave. Oliver, in that case, can I pursue you again? Bella's voice had a rare, pleading tone. Oliver, I've had time to think. Ethan and I are just colleagues. I was the one who didn't know my boundaries before. Didn't know her boundaries? I couldn't help but laugh at Bella's shamelessness. Bella, your idea of not knowing boundaries is ditching your boyfriend to go hold hands with your secretary while watching the sunrise? Lying in your secretary's lap while he wipes your face? Using a business trip as an excuse to go see the northern lights in Iceland with your secretary? I listed her past actions one by one, and Bella's face grew paler and paler. I glanced over and saw Vivian's expression turning serious. My heart skipped a beat. I had almost forgotten she was here. Since your heart isn't with me anymore, isn't it enough that I'm letting you go? Bella, the moment I broke up with you, I decided I wanted nothing to do with you ever again. I hope we can both maintain some dignity. With that, I turned and walked away. On the car ride back, Vivian was silent. Just as we were about to reach the house, she finally spoke. Oliver, I never realized you had it so rough all these years. If I had known, I would have done whatever it took to get you to come to the UK 3 years ago.
Ist der Herr stunned?
I didn't expect that even as an outsider, she would feel indignant for me after hearing my story. Perhaps it's just human nature to be fickle and always seek novelty. I sighed. Vivian turned her head and stared at me, then suddenly smiled. Oliver, have you ever heard this saying? What saying? New clothes are fine, but old friends are better. Knock, knock, knock. It was just getting light out. I had just finished washing up and was about to make breakfast when I heard a knock on the door. Why is Vivian here so early today? I wiped my hands, ran to open the door, and found Bella outside, holding breakfast. What are you doing here? I frowned, about to close the door, but she quickly stepped inside. She looked around, and her serious expression suddenly broke into a smile. She strode to the dining table and placed the breakfast on it. It was a sandwich and milk. Oliver, I remember you used to love the sandwiches I made for you. I made this for you this morning, she said, smiling at me. Bella, we've broken up. We should keep our distance now. I looked at the breakfast on the table without any appetite. You're trespassing right now. I can call the police and have them remove you. I looked at her coldly and took out my phone. Oliver, you're not even going to give me a chance? Bella's face was filled with shock when she saw me take out my phone. She probably never expected me to be so resolute. I just want to talk to you again, Bella said with a bitter smile. I have nothing to talk to you about. Weren't you the one who kept letting go of my hand? Step by step? What? You're not spending your nights whispering sweet nothings under the moonlight with Ethan anymore. I replied impatiently. All I wanted right now was for Vivian to come and get me out of here, to end this boring conversation. I don't love him. I just care about him. I couldn't tell the difference before, but I understand now. I've already fired him. Can you come back to me? I know what I did before hurt you. I'll make it up to you now. I swear I'll never do it again. A wave of irony washed over me. Her so-called caring was just an excuse to engage in all sorts of ambiguous behavior with another man. I was tired of her excuses. I took out my phone, the screen showing the social media post Ethan had made last time. Bella's face changed. We arrived back in the country just after midnight, so Ethan suggested we go watch the sunrise. The morning was chilly, and he kept pestering me to hold his hand. I was just confused for a moment, that's why, if it bothers you, I'll take you there when we get back. She explained frantically, but to me, her explanation was weak and powerless. I looked at her calmly. Bella, do you know what I was doing while you two were watching the sunrise? I let out a self-mocking laugh. I was alone in a foreign country, my mind completely consumed with the company's deal. While I was fighting for our future, where were you? You were on the bund with your secretary, watching the sunrise, fulfilling a wish I had always wanted to share with you. Bella, at that moment, were you enjoying the beautiful sunrise with a handsome man by your side? Or were you thinking about me, the one you left behind in another country? I think you had already thrown me to the back of your mind. Bella lowered her head, her face full of guilt. I'm sorry. I didn't know it would cause you so much pain. I looked at Bella's guilty expression and suppressed the bitterness in my heart. I don't blame you anymore. I just hope you'll stop bothering me. With that, I subtly avoided Bella's hand as she tried to grab mine. I need you. The company needs you too, Oliver. But he doesn't need you anymore, Vivian said, stepping in from the doorway. Sorry, I'm late today. Vivian looked at me apologetically, then used her body to block Bella from me. Oliver already broke up with you last time. I don't think it's appropriate for you to keep harassing him like this. Bella glared at Vivian with hostility. You're just Oliver's boss. This is a private matter between me and Oliver. It's none of your business. A war was about to break out between them. I ignored them, walked to the dining table, picked up the now cold sandwich, and threw it in the trash in front of Bella. In the trash, the sandwich had fallen apart, the fried egg and ham smeared with grime. Do you remember this sandwich? Back then, my parents didn't approve of us and cut me off financially. This was the most luxurious food we could afford. I looked up and saw that Bella's eyes were red, but I felt no ripple of emotion. When we first lived together, no matter how late you slept, you would wake up early to make this. But slowly, as we became more financially stable, you stopped. Just like the principles you used to hold so dear, they slowly disappeared too. I calmly said this long speech. She opened her mouth silently, but in the end, she stubbornly stuck to her one line. I've already fired Ethan. I cut off her attempt to explain further. Bella, I've reflected on myself before. I wondered if it was because my personality was too intense, our life too dull, that you sought excitement elsewhere. But I thought about it for a long time, and I really couldn't find a reason. Because I also encountered women who pursued me. She was mature, stable, polite, and humble. I was even a little tempted, but I quickly dismissed the thought, because I knew I already had my lifelong partner. Such a simple concept. Did you not know that? In middle school, my ethics teacher once defined love, saying that love is exclusive. You see, a principle I knew back in middle school, yet I only decided to leave after being completely brokenhearted. Vivian handed me a tissue. I touched my face. I hadn't realized I was crying. My face was wet with tears. Oliver, if you come back now, I'll marry you, Bella said anxiously, seeing that Vivian was about to lead me away. My steps faltered for a moment, but ultimately, I didn't stop. A few hours later, my phone rang. It was Bella's mother. Her mom was a very warm person. When I used to visit their home, she treated me like her own son. I had no reason not to answer her call. Oliver, I hear from Bella that you two are breaking up. Bella's mother's familiar voice came from the other end. Auntie, Bella and I have already broken up, I insisted, correcting the words in her sentence. There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by a soft sigh. Oliver, I know what happened between you two. It's all our girl's fault. I'll be sure to teach her a good lesson for you, she said with a placating laugh. I remained silent, knowing that her mother was calling at Bella's request to make peace, but I didn't want to compromise. Oliver, I know Bella did you wrong this time and caused you a great deal of pain. It's her fault for not cherishing a wonderful man like you, for getting mixed up with those unsavory people outside. I've already scolded her. She knows she was wrong and promised it won't happen again. Men should be more broad-minded. She's still young, she just made a foolish mistake. Can you give her another chance, please? Her mother continued to persuade me earnestly, but I suddenly asked, Auntie, when you and Uncle used to have disagreements, did you ever think about cheating? She hadn't expected me to ask that and answered instinctively, why would I ever think about cheating? Auntie, I think you and I are both people who are sincere in our relationships, but they are not. That's why they can pick out all sorts of faults in us, find all sorts of excuses for their cheating, and shamelessly blame us for it. Auntie, before you and Uncle got together, you already knew each other's personalities well. If he couldn't stand your personality, he should have broken up with you then, instead of complaining about it while taking your kindness for granted. Similarly, I know my personality isn't very assertive. I know I'm a bit of a workaholic. But Bella should never have enjoyed the help I gave her career while lavishing attention on another man. The love we had was real, and the fact that it's gone now is also real. If she had just been honest with me when she fell out of love, I might have respected her for her frankness. When she stopped loving me, she should have just told me clearly, instead of trying to have it both ways. How is that any different from being a scoundrel? Her mother was silent for a long time before saying, How could Bella not love you? She's been trying to get back together with you. Auntie, her wanting to get back together with me isn't about love. It's because she can get what she wants from me. I said it plainly and decisively. It seemed my words had gotten through to her. She replied dryly, I won't meddle in you young people's love lives, and hastily hung up. I tilted my head and looked at Vivian, who had been in the driver's seat the whole time. Her eyes were fixed on the road ahead, a slight smile on her lips. She said, Oliver, do you still believe in love? I do. Why wouldn't I? There are still sincere people in this world. I can't let one bad experience with someone like Bella make me give up on everything and think all women are terrible. That's life, you win some, you lose some. Even though this relationship failed, didn't I get a higher paying job out of it? A smile spread across my face, and the clouds that had been hanging over me suddenly cleared. Vivian seemed to be infected by my mood, and the curve of her lips deepened. Oliver, do you know? It was your confidence and open-mindedness that first attracted me. Back then, there were many competitors for the project with your company. But when you were presenting the proposal, your every word and gesture were poised and confident. You were respectful yet firm with the colleagues who questioned you. You seemed to glow. Later, when the company decided on a partner, I made the call to work with your company. When I found out Bella's company was just a small startup, I felt that it was a waste of your talent. There was a hint of pride in Vivian's voice. I hadn't heard such open praise in a long time, and a blush crept up my face. Do you know why Bella fired Ethan? Vivian asked mysteriously. Why? Because after you broke up with her, she tried to make Ethan take over your position. Make Ethan take over my position? I scoffed. It was probably because Bella had tried to recruit people, but couldn't find anyone who met her standards. So, she had no choice but to push Ethan, who had a computer science degree, to take on the role. However, there's a big difference between textbook knowledge and real-world problems. But ever since Ethan took over, they, who used to update the system at night, now update it during the day. I was shocked. Are they crazy? That will affect the user experience and lead to a loss of users. Yes, apparently it's because Ethan complained that staying up late would affect his skin. And what's even more surprising is that Bella doesn't seem to care much and just lets Ethan do as he pleases. In that case, their system's complaint rate must be very high now, I continued. It is. That's why they held a press conference to apologize. Bella even appeared in person. Bella appeared in person? I suddenly remembered the early days of Bella's company. I wasn't familiar enough with the system then and caused a major bug, leading to a flood of user complaints. As a startup, we couldn't afford so many complaints. The negative word of mouth also made some investors consider pulling their funding. To save the company's reputation and prevent investors from backing out, I decided to hold a press conference to apologize, but Bella refused to show her face. For the company's sake, I had to grit my teeth, contact reporters, and apologize in person. Ultimately, we resolved that crisis. But now, Bella had appeared in person. She was probably worried Ethan couldn't handle the reporter's tough questions. Vivian seemed to read my mind. She shook her head and said, Bella realized Ethan wasn't up to the task. So after the press conference, she hired a technical manager at a high price. I did some research. This technical manager has a lot of experience and has worked with that system before. If this technical manager successfully comes on board, they might be able to get through this crisis. But Ethan isn't happy about it. He thinks the new manager used some kind of trick. Well, Ethan's in for some drama then, I sighed. Perhaps because Bella's company was facing more and more problems, she didn't bother me for several days. I was happy to have the peace and quiet, and Vivian and I visited several tourist spots. One day, while we were having a great time, my phone rang. It was Officer Sarah Miller. Oliver, I have good news for you. I found the information on the little girl who saved you. Officer Miller's excited voice came from the other end. Who is it? Can you tell me? My heart, which had been calm, suddenly started to race. My body tensed up, and my mind went blank. I didn't know how to face the outcome. If it wasn't Bella, I could calmly express my long overdue thanks. But if it was Bella, what would I do? My brain suddenly stopped working. Oliver, are you still there? I was suddenly brought back to reality by Officer Miller's voice. I'm here. Is she willing to share her information? I'd like to thank her in person, I asked tentatively.
Oliver, I've contacted her.
She said she doesn't want to reveal her identity for now. But Officer Miller paused for dramatic effect. But she said she can meet you on New Year's Day. New Year's Day? I suddenly remembered that on the first anniversary of our relationship, Bella and I had made a pact that no matter how busy we were with school or work, we would always celebrate New Year's Day together, to symbolize a perfect start. The timing was so coincidental. Could it be that it really was Bella? Is her last name Sterling? I asked cautiously, my heart pounding. I hoped it wasn't Bella. At least I wasn't ready to see her right now. Oliver, her last name isn't Sterling, Officer Miller said with certainty. The weight on my chest finally lifted. Oliver, I have to go now. Talk to you later. Then she hung up. I let out a long sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't Bella, it didn't matter who it was. I looked at the calendar on my phone. New Year's Day was less than 3 months away. Vivian had been watching my changing expressions and couldn't help but interrupt my thoughts. If that girl pursues you, would you say yes? Vivian's question came out of nowhere. I looked up and noticed she was resting her head on her hand, her expression serious, her eyes fixed on me. My heart skipped a beat. No, a debt of gratitude is one thing, and a relationship is another. I can tell the difference. After saying that, I looked away from her. What if she insists on pursuing you and is completely devoted to you? Would you agree then? I looked at her serious expression, confused, and didn't answer her question, trying to find the answer on her face. Did you find out who she is? She looked back at me frankly, her serious face suddenly breaking into a smile. I'm not that powerful. I just wanted to know your attitude toward your savior. I burst out laughing and then said, I'll definitely be very grateful to this savior, but I have no plans to be in a relationship for now. I didn't know if I was saying this to myself or to Vivian, but I knew that my heart was weary, and I didn't want to jump into a new relationship for the time being. Maybe I was just overthinking things. I comforted myself. Then, I continued with the rest of our plans for the day. A few days later, Bella's company was trending on X. Shocking. Chaos within Sterling Corp. Tech manager seduces CEO. Scoop. Sterling Corp CEO in love triangle. The comments below were all over the place. Some troublemakers went to Sterling Corp's official page to denounce the other man, while more people flooded the tech manager, Mark's, social media with abusive comments. When I heard the news, I had just woken up, bleary-eyed, looking at the information Vivian had shared with me. I pieced it together and learned that Ethan and the newly hired tech manager, Mark, had had a falling out. So, Ethan posted a long rant on social media, accusing Mark of using improper means to seduce Bella, which led to his dismissal. I carefully read Ethan's post. He was vague about his relationship with Bella, but the pictures he included were from their ambiguous interactions. So, some uninformed onlookers would instinctively assume that Bella and Ethan had been dating. I suddenly felt like laughing. When Bella had tacitly allowed Ethan to post those ambiguous pictures, did she ever think that one day she would be affected by them herself? I guess she brought it on herself. I was suddenly glad I had come to the UK, far away from all this drama. Otherwise, I might have been dragged into this mess too. By evening, the trending topics had died down. Sterling Corp's official page and Mark's page had both disabled comments. Then, a friend on X messaged me. It was Ethan. Got time to meet? Sure. I replied quickly. When I saw Ethan again, the arrogance and resentment in his eyes were gone, replaced by a deep weariness, just like mine had been. I suddenly remembered how, whenever he knew I was with Bella, he would always find some excuse to call her away, then subtly post on X or his feed to show off his victory. At that time, Ethan probably thought he had Bella wrapped around his little finger. But what he didn't know was that Bella wasn't a fool. She was just reveling in the thrill of being fought over by two men. Now that I had left the game, and his little tricks were affecting her interests, she would discard him immediately. Oliver, you must be very happy now. Bella's been charmed by another man, and she even fired me. She even hit me for that bastard, saying I was slandering their good name. You didn't seek me out just to complain about your troubles, did you? I looked impassively at the man who had been so radiant just a few weeks ago, now haggard because of Bella. Once again, I felt grateful for my decision to leave. Did you see the trending topics on X yesterday? Because of that post, Bella won't talk to me now. I just wanted to teach Mark a lesson. I didn't expect it to have such a big impact on the company. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. I hope you can help me talk to Bella. His voice was low, and his eyes pleaded with me. I stared at the man I once resented, now begging me because of Bella. I have no contact with Bella anymore. Sorry, I probably can't help you. I started to walk away. His tone became urgent. You were together for 10 years. No matter what, she'll still listen to you. If you're willing to put in a good word for me, I'll do whatever you ask in the future. My steps faltered. I turned back to see Ethan standing there, tears streaming down his face. I struggled for a moment, then walked back. Ethan, if Bella truly cherished our 10 years together, you would have never come between us. If Bella cared about you, she wouldn't have kept you in an ambiguous relationship without making you her official boyfriend. So, the truth is, Bella doesn't love anyone but herself. And now you're humbling yourself before me for someone who doesn't love you. That's a disrespect to yourself. I said this long speech calmly. He opened his mouth, but his voice was hoarse as he yelled, "No, Bella loves me. She's just angry I can't help her, so she's punishing me like this." I tried to leave again, but he grabbed me, his tears smearing on my clothes. "Help me just this once. I really don't want to be abandoned." I pried his fingers off one by one and walked away, ignoring the cries behind me. Why does everyone abandon me? The voice finally faded away. I sighed. I guess even hateful people have their pitiful side. In the house, just as I was about to go to sleep, Vivian sent me another screenshot. It was another trending topic about Sterling Corp. Scoop: Sterling Corp's tech manager is an NYU grad student. Shocking. Sterling Corp's tech manager revealed. I opened X again. Apparently, someone had leaked Mark's personal information, and now everyone knew he was a graduate student at NYU. These onlookers, already frustrated that Sterling Corp and Mark had closed their comment sections, now flocked to NYU's admissions office and official social media pages, flooding them with comments. Some demanded the university expel Mark, while others insisted the school address issues of students' personal conduct. I stared, dumbfounded, at this unfolding farce and watched as Sterling Corp's stock price, which had been starting to recover, began to fall again. I thought, the impact of Ethan's little post is getting worse and worse. If this were the past, I would be frantic trying to solve these problems. But now, I figured the person at the center of it was probably making frantic calls, trying to find a solution. My phone rang again. It was a new message from Vivian. Some investors have already pulled their funding from Sterling Corp. If you want her to go bankrupt, I can cancel our contract with Sterling Corp at any time. I only partnered with them because of you in the first place. I looked at the messages silently, without replying. Then, a call from an unknown number popped up. Oliver, can you help me solve this crisis? We built this company together. I'm sure you wouldn't want to see it go bankrupt, would you? It had been a long time since Bella had contacted me. Her voice was hoarse and filled with deep exhaustion. I remember when the company used to run into problems, I would always be on the front lines. To prevent public opinion from influencing investors' decisions and causing a break in our cash flow, I would attend all sorts of dinners and networking events every day. Back then, even though the road ahead was full of difficulties, our hearts were full of hope for the future. And just 7 years later, we had gone our separate ways. Bella, we have no relationship anymore. The company has nothing to do with me, I answered calmly. Oliver, you poured your heart into this company too. Can you really be so cruel? If you truly believed I had a hand in this company's success, you wouldn't have taken Ethan's side and left me stranded abroad back then. I thought of the contract I had torn up in Singapore. If Bella hadn't been so stubborn and left me there, and had just waited for news, that huge order could have temporarily saved her company from its current predicament. I decisively hung up the phone, not wanting to listen to Bella's guilt-tripping. I want to go to Singapore, I replied to Vivian. I'll go with you, her reply came back immediately. Downstairs at S Corp in Singapore. Oliver, you're incredible. The moment we stepped out of the elevator, Vivian couldn't help but exclaim. This is my way of thanking you for being my driver and tour guide all this time, I said, holding the newly signed contract with a smile. And I thank you for signing such a huge deal for the company. Dinner's on me tonight. Vivian took the contract from my hand again, unable to resist looking at it over and over. Accidentally, she bumped into a man walking toward us, who was next to Bella. The man stumbled back from the impact and crouched on the ground. Ouch, the man clutched his head where he'd been hit. Bella rushed to check on him, then turned around, ready to confront us. Why don't you watch where you're going? Bella stopped mid-sentence when she saw it was me. Oliver, what are you doing here? Bella's furious voice turned to confusion. When she saw Vivian instinctively move to shield me, her expression changed. Are you okay? Vivian, realizing who it was, reached out to help the man up. The contract slipped from her hand. Bella noticed the contract and snatched it up before I could. After seeing the partner company's name, her face turned ashen. Oliver, what is the meaning of this? You told me the deal failed, and then you turn around and give it to your mistress? Bella's right hand clenched the contract tightly, the veins on her arm bulging. I wasn't the one who said the deal failed, remember? I said, looking at Bella's ever-changing expression. I confirmed with you later, and you also said the deal failed, didn't you? Since you already believed Ethan's side of the story and accepted that my deal had failed, then I just made it a reality for you, I said nonchalantly, ignoring Bella's expression. "Boss, we need to go sign the contract," a steady male voice interjected. Only then did I turn my attention from Bella to him. The man was dressed in a black suit, his expression placid, as if he had no interest in our conversation. Bella released her tight grip on the contract, intending to tear it up. "Ms. Sterling, you should have some professional ethics. Tearing up our contract will have legal consequences. You know? You wouldn't want your company to make headlines again, would you?" Vivian said with a hint of mockery. "You?" Bella stared at the contract, unwilling to let it go. While she was hesitating, Vivian, quick as a flash, snatched it back. After getting the contract, Vivian looked playfully at Bella's face, which was now a kaleidoscope of colors. "Let's go," I said, tugging on Vivian's sleeve, signaling her to leave. "Boss, if we don't leave now, we'll be late." The man continued to urge Bella. Bella had no choice but to leave. After she was gone, I let out a long sigh. The conversation was finally over. "That man is Mark," Vivian's voice came from beside me. I had already suspected as much. It's just that this man was so different from the scheming person Ethan had described. If I hadn't seen photos of Mark that netizens shared on X before, I probably wouldn't have been so sure he was Mark. Recalling his calm expression just now, I shook my head. Ethan's post made him out to be so manipulative. Now that I've met him, I don't think he's that bad at all. I blurted out my thoughts. A person like Ethan projects his own nature onto others, thinking everyone in the world treasures Bella as he does, Vivian agreed. Yes, it was his own incompetence that led Bella to replace him with Mark. Instead of reflecting on himself, he blamed Mark, resented him, and tried to force him out by slinging mud. I looked into Ethan's family situation. He has a younger brother. Later, because his family couldn't afford to support 2 children, a young Ethan was sold to another couple. That couple was decent to him at first, but after they had their own child, they didn't treat him as well as before. Vivian said this calmly. My mind suddenly flashed back to my last conversation with Ethan, and his final words, "Why does everyone abandon me?" My stomach growled at an inopportune moment. I scratched my head in embarrassment. Vivian held back a laugh and said, "I just booked a table at a Chinese restaurant. Let's go eat." At the Chinese restaurant, the waiter brought out my favorite dishes one by one. Osmanthus lotus root, stir-fried river shrimp, bamboo shoot stir-fry with pork, and borscht. I took a sip of the soup. It was a familiar taste. I said happily, "I haven't had Chinese food in so long after being in the UK." Vivian served me a separate bowl of soup, placed it aside, and said thoughtfully, "Be careful, it's hot. Let it cool down a bit before you drink it." As I was feasting, the ever-present Bella walked over. She skillfully grabbed 2 chairs from a nearby table, and she and Mark sat down on either side of me. She even called the waiter over to order more food. I frowned, watching her complete this whole process with practiced ease. "Bella, what on earth do you want?" "Oliver, my mom and dad got a divorce," Bella said, not answering my question. Beside her, Mark continued to eat with a blank expression, and Vivian, returning from the restroom, stared at the scene, dumbfounded. "Ever since my mom called you, she suddenly demanded a divorce out of the blue. She even gave me a huge lecture."
Oliver, I'm sorry.
If my mom hadn't yelled at me like that, I wouldn't have realized what a huge mistake I made. Bella's voice was choked with sobs as she confessed her mistakes. I looked at Bella with a complex expression. This was the first time she had been so emotional since we broke up. Thankfully, it wasn't peak dinner time, and there weren't many customers. Otherwise, if someone had filmed this, it would probably be a trending topic on X again. "Oliver, are you willing to forgive me?" Just as I was about to speak, Vivian, who was sitting next to me peeling shrimp, dumped all the peeled shrimp into my bowl and said, "Here's the shrimp you like. Talk less, eat more." I looked down at the full bowl of shrimp, then looked up at the dazed Bella. She was probably looking at the shrimp and thinking about our past, about the nickname that used to be exclusively mine, Shrimp Peeling Angel. I've always loved shrimp, but I find it troublesome to peel, so I rarely eat it. After I started dating Bella, she found out I loved shrimp and secretly peeled a full bowl for me in the cafeteria, bringing it to my dorm for a late-night snack. My roommate, who came downstairs with me, saw the bowl of shell-less shrimp and jokingly called her my shrimp-peeling angel. At that moment, we agreed that this was her exclusive title. I couldn't eat shrimp peeled by anyone else. Oliver, you promised me you wouldn't eat shrimp peeled by anyone else. Bella's face was pale. We've already broken up. You don't have the right to tell me what to do. Do you? I picked up a shrimp from my bowl and put it in my mouth. Are you two already? She scanned us, then seemed to remember something. The reason you were so determined to break up with me and leave without a word, was it because of this woman? And you gave the contract that was supposed to be with our company to Vivian. And you went to the UK to work at her company. Bella listed the changes in my life since we broke up. I was about to argue. Do you think everyone is like you, only thinking with their lower body? Vivian sneered. Bella, our lives went in separate directions the moment we broke up. You have no right to boss me around now. I emphasized the word right. After speaking, I lowered my head and ate another shrimp. The world around me finally fell silent. When I looked up again, Bella had her head down, silently picking at the rice in her bowl. Oliver, you said it. You said you would only love me forever, Bella murmured. I thought back to 5 years ago, on the day we celebrated our 5th anniversary. We went to a photo studio and took a picture together. In the photo, Bella and I were looking at each other with deep affection. At the time, the photographer praised us, saying we were a perfect match made in heaven. Flattered, Bella happily took the photographer's business card and joked that he should wait for our good news, that he would also have to take our wedding photos. After the photos were developed, Bella also wrote on one, Oliver and Bella will be together forever. At that time, I hugged Bella and said, I will love you forever. Perhaps we were too young back then, thinking love could conquer all, that it could last forever. In the end, time changed everything. Just like that long faded photo, just like that phrase I had already crossed out. Oliver and Bella will be together forever. Beside me, Mark was wearing Bluetooth headphones, engrossed in his phone. He had an air of someone who hears no evil and reads only the sacred texts. I watched him quietly. He seemed to notice my gaze, then took off his headphones and said calmly, Is there something you need? Are you Mark, Bella's tech manager? Yes. Bella noticed our conversation. She suddenly said, Oliver, we can never go back to how we were. Can we? You were the one who wronged me first. My gaze shifted back to Bella. In that case, then Mark and I would like to invite you to our engagement party, Bella said expressionlessly, dropping a bombshell on all of us. Vivian, who had been peeling shrimp, also turned to look at them upon hearing this news. But Mark's expression remained unchanged. Bella didn't seem to want to say anything more. She turned and left, with Mark following closely behind. Only Vivian and I were left, staring at each other in stunned silence. Perhaps she wants to reduce the negative impact of public opinion on her company, Vivian suddenly said. After all, Ethan's post had a huge impact. I heard that several companies that hadn't yet partnered with them canceled their plans. I added. Yes, Sterling Corp is facing internal and external troubles. The system is always unstable. User experience complaints are high. The social media scandal has dragged the company into a PR crisis, and investors are losing confidence. The only question is whether the public will buy it this time. I shook my head and said no more. I wondered if Bella had managed to appease Ethan. What would Ethan's reaction be if he found out Bella was getting engaged? And why was Mark willing to get engaged to Bella? Recalling Mark's attitude toward Bella, it was purely that of a subordinate to a superior. With these questions in mind, Vivian and I flew back to the UK. When the plane landed at London Heathrow, it was already afternoon. The journey had taken over a dozen hours, and I was exhausted. All I wanted was to embrace my big bed. As I turned off airplane mode, Ben's call came through immediately. I answered, and his excited voice burst through the phone. Huge news. On X, Sterling Corp announced that Bella and Mark are engaged. Bella announced the engagement so quickly? I turned to look at Vivian beside me, glanced at her phone screen, and saw the trending topics on X. When she saw me looking, she handed me her phone. I took Vivian's phone and looked at the trending topics. I realized that Bella had indeed announced her engagement to Mark so quickly, and claimed that the pictures Ethan had posted were taken without her knowledge. A picture of Ethan's termination letter was also attached to the post. Surprised? Shocked? Ben's excited voice came through my ear again, hoping to hear my astonishment. But he didn't know that Vivian and I had already found out in Singapore. I ran into Mark and Bella in Singapore. She even invited me and Vivian to her engagement party. I replied with a smile. What? You didn't share such an exciting story with me. Not cool at all. Ben pretended to be angry, then added, Oliver, so now that Bella and Mark are getting engaged, what do you think? Bella is in the past. I'm not interested in her anymore. I just need her to stay as far away from me as possible, I replied patiently. Do you know why Mark is willing to get engaged to Bella? Ben's voice came through again. Why? I asked, puzzled. Because Mark's mother is in the hospital and needs a lot of money. My mind suddenly flashed back to Mark's expressionless face. No wonder he wasn't interested in anything else. How do you know all this? I asked in surprise. Let's meet and talk. I'm on my way to your place. With that, he hung up. At the house. Such a coincidence. My mom knows Mark's mom. After the last X scandal, I showed my mom Mark's picture, and she said she knows him. Mark has been a good kid since he was little, definitely not the type to seduce anyone. Then my mom asked around, and guess what? She found out some things. Turns out Mark's mom got sick this year. She was diagnosed with kidney failure and needs a transplant. But Mark is still a graduate student. Where would he get that much money for his mom's transplant? I also asked some current students in our campus group, and they said that at first Mark went to the school to ask for help from his professors. The professors called for donations to see if they could help him. When Bella found out, she went to the professor and asked for his contact information. And then we saw on X that he became the tech manager at Bella's company. Ben said all this in one breath and then chugged a full glass of tea. This Mark kid has had it rough, getting slapped with such a huge accusation by Ethan out of nowhere. I heard from the professors that Mark's mom was almost affected by it. Luckily, Mark moved her to a private room. Otherwise, Ethan would have a lot to answer for. After hearing Ben's story, I felt ashamed of the pity I had felt for Ethan earlier. But, Oliver, I noticed Mark's face. From a certain angle, he looks a bit like you. Could this be some kind of stand-in plot from a novel? I stuffed a piece of melon into Ben's mouth. There's no such twisted thing. Ben chewed on the melon and mumbled, you'd better believe it. Then he quickly finished chewing and swallowed. I heard from the professors that at first, Bella just went to the school to get Mark's information, wanting to invite the top student in the grade to work at her company. But she was hesitant when she learned about Mark's mom's situation. But when she saw Mark's picture, her expression changed, and she immediately decided to hire him. Do you think Mark's picture has some kind of magic? So, after studying it over and over, I'm now very sure it's because Mark looks a bit like you. Ben's voice was firm and certain. I was silent for a long time. I thought back to the first time I saw Mark in Singapore. He had a look of indifference, but there was a hint of sorrow in his eyes. He paid no attention to my conversation with Bella and all our drama, as if it had nothing to do with him. By the way, Oliver, have you contacted Officer Miller recently? Just before leaving, Ben suddenly asked. I have. Last time, Officer Miller said my savior didn't want to reveal her information, but we've arranged to meet at a coffee shop near my home around New Year's Day. Ben didn't say anything more, but frowned and looked worried as he was about to leave. Ben, is something wrong? I looked at him with concern. He shook his head, signaling me not to worry, then turned and left. After seeing Ben off, I could finally go to bed and get some much-needed sleep. As I was about to fall asleep, my phone started ringing. It was my mom. Oliver, I heard from your Aunt Laura that Bella and Mark are engaged. How are you doing over there? My mom's worried voice came through. Mom, I'm fine. I stopped caring about Bella a long time ago. I'm actually thankful she's getting engaged. At least she won't be bothering me anymore, I replied in a light-hearted tone. Oliver, your Aunt Laura helped me set up WeChat and taught me how to make video calls. Add me as a friend. Mom hasn't seen you in a long time and wants to see you. Okay. On the phone screen, I saw the new white hairs on my mother's head. My nose tingled as I remembered how, years ago, because my mother didn't approve of me being with Bella, I had packed my bags in a fit of anger and rushed to the small home I shared with Bella. At that time, I had a huge falling out with my parents. My father even said in anger that he would disown me. Later, just before the new year, my mother swallowed her pride and called me, hoping I would come home for the holiday, but I stubbornly refused. After that, I spent one new year after another with Bella. I hadn't been back in so many years and hadn't been a good son. Now, even video calls had to be taught to my mother by Aunt Laura. Evening. On Brighton Beach. The setting sun shone on the beach. Vivian walked behind me as I walked barefoot on the soft sand, trying to ease the unhappiness I had been feeling. Vivian, I have to go home this New Year's Day. Okay. I have to keep my promise and meet my childhood savior on New Year's Day. Okay. Vivian, I also want to thank you for your companionship during this time. With a gentleman by my side, the years are peaceful. Thank you too. I turned and smiled at Vivian. I was about to say something more when I faintly heard a man sobbing. Vivian heard it too. Curious, we walked in the direction of the sound. Why does he get to be engaged to you? Why? Last time, I just wanted him to stop seducing you. I didn't know it would have such a big impact on the company. I'm sorry, Bella. Can you give me another chance? The man's voice grew louder and more emotional, attracting the attention of the surrounding tourists. It was Ethan. He turned, saw me and Vivian. Oliver. He shouted my name and walked toward us. In the coffee shop, worried that he would get too emotional and hurt me, Vivian insisted on sitting at the next table to monitor Ethan's every move. I looked at Ethan. He looked exhausted now, a far cry from his arrogant self from before. He even had a pitiful look about him. If I didn't know what he had done, I might have been deceived by his current appearance. His voice was hoarse and choked with sobs. Oliver, we both lost. Did you see the trending topics on X? Bella is with that bastard Mark. That bastard Mark, what right does he have to be with Bella? Do you know what Bella said to me? She said Mark is more capable and sensible than me. But that's not what she said before. She said I didn't have to do anything, just be kind and innocent. She said her life with you was too dull, that you were too boring, and that I was passionate, which is why she kept me by her side as her secretary. Ethan cried and complained, probably wanting to vent all the frustrations he had been feeling. Listening to him, I thought this man was as foolish as ever. Bella had said those sweet things to him at first because back then, I was holding up the company, and she didn't have to worry about anything. At that time, Bella had a career and a boyfriend. All she was missing was a boy who could arouse her protective instincts, and Ethan happened to fill that role. Later, when I left the company, Bella initially underestimated the scope of my work and couldn't find anyone as dedicated as me. So she hoped Ethan, who also graduated with a computer science degree, would take my place. But she overestimated his abilities, and he ended up causing some damage to the company. So now she had discarded Ethan and chosen the computer science prodigy, Mark, to take over. Why did things turn out this way? Why? Ethan suddenly broke down and started crying loudly. The other people in the coffee shop heard the commotion and kept looking over. I felt extremely uncomfortable and wanted to leave. I just couldn't empathize with him, especially since his post on X had twisted the truth and unfairly blamed the innocent Mark. Mark and Bella are getting engaged now. You should just give up, I finally said, wanting to cut off his crying. Ethan looked up at me, his face full of impatience. He suddenly said, "Aren't you angry? Mark has stolen the girlfriend you had for 10 years. He stared at me fiercely, as if hoping to get some negative comment from me about the engagement news. I figured he was still skeptical about what I had said before, about no longer having feelings for Bella. I told you last time we met, I have no feelings for Bella anymore. She's in the past. I have to move forward, I said calmly. His suspicion was understandable. In the past, I had used every trick in the book to threaten Bella, just to get her to fire Ethan. One time, when I was off and Bella was at work, I brought her a home-cooked meal because her stomach problems had been acting up, and I was worried that food from outside would irritate her stomach. When I got to the office, people gave me strange looks. Puzzled. I walked into Bella's office and saw Ethan and Bella already eating. Bella was smiling and putting food on Ethan's plate. The sound of the door opening made them both look over. Before I could say anything, Ethan had already taken the lunch bag from my hand. Wow, Bella is so lucky to have such a considerate boyfriend like Oliver. Unlike me, I'm so clumsy I can't cook. I can only have Bella order takeout for me. At that time, I was so angry at Ethan's pretentious act that I was about to hit him. Bella shielded him and said to me, "This is the office. Be professional." I angrily told Bella to fire Ethan or we would break up, then ran out of the office, hoping she would chase after me and explain. I thought if she just explains, I'll forgive her. But I waited at home for a long time, until it was dark outside, before a drunk Bella finally came home. That time, Bella and I gave each other the silent treatment for a long time, so long that I thought our relationship was about to end. Then, Bella gave me a watch, one I had wanted for a long time but couldn't bring myself to buy. At that time, I was overjoyed, thinking Bella had realized her mistake, and I immediately forgave her. But later, through Ethan's social media post, I found out that she hadn't bought the watch for me because she knew I had been longing for it. It was Ethan who had picked it out and had Bella give it to me. I confronted Bella with the watch, but she just frowned and said I was being unreasonable. She said, "Ethan spent so long picking out this watch, and you're questioning his intentions with such malice." Yes, at that time my whole world revolved around Bella, but she didn't deserve my love. "Ethan, I'm not the same person I used to be." Ethan said fiercely, "Oliver, I never thought you'd become such a pushover. I'm not you. I'm not that magnanimous. I will have my revenge." After hearing what Ethan said, I started to worry about Mark. I didn't know what other tricks Ethan would pull. "What are you planning to do?" I asked. He glanced at me sideways. "That's none of your business." With that, he stood up and left. I watched Ethan's back with concern and looked at Vivian at the next table. Should I contact Mark? I'm worried Mark will misunderstand what you say. Let's just wait and see what Ethan does next. Okay. The sight of Ben's worried back as he left last time had been bothering me. Plus, he hadn't contacted me recently, so I decided to go to his place to check on him. When I knocked, I found the door was ajar. I pushed it open, called out a few times, but got no response. Worried, I went inside and found Ben asleep on the sofa, reeking of alcohol. I hurried over and covered him with a blanket, afraid he would catch a cold. I looked at the mess around him and guessed that Ben hadn't left the house at all recently. I worriedly started cleaning up while waiting for him to wake up. "Oliver, what are you doing here?" Ben's voice woke me up. I looked out the window, it was already dark. I checked my phone, it was the middle of the night. "Ben, what's been going on with you lately? Why are you in such a mess?" I asked with concern. Ben hemmed and hawed, refusing to say what was wrong, only that he had been in a bad mood recently. "Ben, no matter what happens, just know that I'll always be here for you in London." Ben's eyes turned red, and he silently wrapped his arms around my neck, lowering his head to cry. "Oliver, I think I've lost someone really special," Ben finally said. "She was so good, but I might never see her again." Has our dear Ben fallen in love, only to miss his chance? Seeing his sad face, I could only try to joke to cheer him up. But to my surprise, after hearing my words, he let go of my neck and stared at me blankly. He said, "Oliver, I really envy you. No matter what, whether you're cruel to Bella or disappointed in her, she might still let you see her. But this person, I'll never see her again in this lifetime." I vaguely guessed the ending. "Is it Officer Miller?" Ben was taken aback. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you suddenly asked about her the other day, so that's what I thought," I explained. He shook his head and said, "Oliver, can you come back to the country with me at the end of December this year?" I thought about my appointment with Officer Miller and said, "Actually, I was planning to go home at the end of December anyway. We can go together." Okay. After saying that, Ben wiped his tears and smiled at me. "Ben, don't suppress your emotions. No matter what, I'll always be here for you," I said, still worried about him. Okay. Ben's tone became lighter. "It's so late. Let's go to bed." The next morning, I groggily looked around and realized I wasn't in my own room. I remembered I was at Ben's house. I looked beside me. He had been up for a while. "Oliver, there's new news about Sterling Corp." Ben burst in. Ben handed me his phone. The screen showed Ethan's familiar face. The news story was about something that had happened last night around 11 p.m. Beijing time. Ethan had somehow found out which room Mark's mother was in and had stormed in, shouting and throwing things around. Mark's mother, who already had high blood pressure, had never seen such a scene, and her blood pressure spiked. Fortunately, the doctor on duty noticed the commotion in the room and rushed in to treat her. When Ethan saw the doctor, he quickly left. Now, Mark's mother was in the ICU, her life hanging by a thread. But even so, in the comments of the news story, some onlookers still thought that Ethan was retaliating because Mark had stolen Bella from him. Although I had only met Mark once, we were from the same school and both studied computer science. I had never felt any animosity toward him, and I decided to help him. I was about to contact Vivian, but just then, her call came through. "Oliver, did you see the news about Ethan?" Vivian said. "I saw it. I can't believe Ethan would go to the hospital and cause a scene," I said, worried about Mark's mother's condition. "I want to lend Mark some money," I said, sharing my idea. After all, Sterling Corp was in no position to help itself, and I didn't want my past with Bella to affect Mark. "Okay." I was thinking the same thing. Vivian agreed with me. Ben, listening to our conversation, sent me a phone number. "Oliver, I got his contact information from my mom last time. It might be helpful to you." I looked at the number in surprise. "Ben, you really are my best friend." I checked the time. 8 a.m. in London was 3 p.m. in Beijing. Mark should be able to answer the phone, so I dialed the number. "Mark, hi, this is Oliver Evans." "Hello." Mark's voice was filled with deep exhaustion. He probably hadn't slept since the incident last night. "We heard about your mother here in London. I also know that you can't look for another job right now since you just left Sterling Corp. I'll lend you some money, but you have to pay me back after your mother recovers. No interest. The condition is you come to London to work. Are you willing?" Mark on the other end of the line was stunned for a few seconds, then asked, "Is there anything else you need me to do?" "No."
Okay, I'm willing.
Mark's voice was firm. After hanging up, I breathed a sigh of relief. I looked up and saw Ben's eyes were red and swollen again, and he was staring into space. "Ben, do you have an ice pack in your freezer?" "Huh?" Ben snapped back to reality and led me to the freezer. I took out an ice pack and handed it to him. Only then did he notice his reflection in a mirror, his eyes red and swollen. We both looked at each other and burst out laughing. I knew that just from yesterday's conversation, Ben was definitely not over it yet. "Ben, I'll say it again. No matter what, we have to keep moving forward." I held the ice pack to Ben's eyes and said seriously, "Thank you, Oliver." Seeing that Ben's eyes were about to get red again, I quickly teased him, "If you cry again, you'll really have rabbit eyes." At the London Airport Departure Lounge. "Mark, we're over here." Ben saw Mark coming out of the airport and waved at him. "Thank you." Mark and his mother walked over and thanked us. "Bella and I have called off the engagement. I had originally reached an agreement with her. She would pay for my mother's hospital bills, and I would get engaged to her to resolve the company's public relations crisis. I just didn't expect Ethan to be so deranged as to take it out on my mom, almost killing her. I told Bella that I hoped she could calm Ethan down and stop him from bothering me and my mom, but Bella disagreed. I thought I might be stuck with Ethan for good. Thank you for helping me, and for bringing me and my mom to London, away from the center of the storm." In Vivian's car, Mark seriously explained what had happened recently. "Don't mention it. I actually have my own selfish reasons," I said, trying to comfort him. Yes, I had my own selfish reasons. As long as Mark was at the company, Sterling Corp's system could barely function. But as soon as Mark resigned, even if Bella could immediately hire a suitable tech manager, they wouldn't be able to start right away because they would need to familiarize themselves with the system. What's more, Bella was highly unlikely to find a suitable tech manager at the moment. "We're here." Vivian's voice interrupted my thoughts. It was a London hospital. We had brought Mark and his mother to be transferred to the best hospital in London. A few days later, in the afternoon, I was walking down the street alone, heading home, when I suddenly felt a sharp pain in the back of my neck. In a daze, I saw Ethan's twisted face. Before I passed out, I thought, I've finally been dragged into this mess with Ethan and Mark. When I woke up again, it was pitch black. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could gradually see that I was tied to a pillar. I tried to move my legs and feet, but failed. I felt that Ethan hadn't taken my phone from inside my clothes and was suddenly grateful that I had developed the habit of keeping my phone close to my body since coming to London. I thought, no matter what, when Vivian realizes I'm missing, she'll definitely find a way to track my phone and find me. But right now I was thirsty and hungry, and I didn't know what time it was. A bright light shone in from the opposite side. The door opened and Ethan walked in. Oliver, I didn't want to do anything to you. But why do you keep interfering? Mark is nothing to you. Why are you helping him? I just wanted to teach Mark a lesson. I didn't expect you to help him. In that case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Ethan's voice grew more and more frantic, and he started to laugh loudly. Anyone who crosses me deserves to die. A voice came from outside. Ethan, what are you doing? It was Bella. Bella, are you trying to get back together with Oliver? Ethan suddenly pulled out a knife and held it to my neck. Bella, why did you leave me? You said you liked me. Ethan's knife pressed closer to my neck. I felt a slight pain. I didn't, Ethan. I just want you to turn back. If you turn back, we can be together. Okay? Bella slowly approached us, her voice gentle. I don't believe you. You're lying to me. You've always been lying to me. At first, you said you liked my passion, but now you've abandoned me. Why did you abandon me? Before Ethan could finish, Bella suddenly hugged him. The knife fell and the two of them scuffled. The police, who had been hiding in the shadows, rushed in and subdued Ethan. Vivian also ran over and anxiously untied me. Oliver, I thought Vivian, who was usually so calm, had red-rimmed eyes as she hugged the now free me. I'm sorry, I didn't expect Ethan to hurt you, Bella said apologetically as she walked over to us. I didn't answer, just turned my face away, not looking at her. Vivian also said nothing, silently holding me as we left. At the house, Ben and Mark were both there, surrounding me. Ben was dabbing medicine on my neck with his head down, while Vivian was cooking in the kitchen. Oliver, I can't believe Ethan would be so audacious, Ben said with lingering fear. Yeah, but I'm not seriously hurt. I patted his hand and comforted him. The doctor said it's just a minor scratch. You guys coming to take care of me every day is really over the top. I heard Ethan was only deported back to his home country by the British police. It's so frustrating. There's nothing we can do. After all, Ethan isn't a local here, I sighed. Mark, who had been staring at his phone, looked up after hearing my words and said, Oliver, don't worry. I'll make Ethan pay the price. That night, as I was about to go to sleep, my phone rang. It was a trending topic on X. Sterling Corp was on the trending list again. Breaking. Sterling Corp CEO two-timing. Shocking. The other man twists the truth. It turned out that Mark had suddenly posted a long article in response to Ethan's previous one. The content was that Ethan was knowingly the third party in a relationship, and he provided a chain of evidence to back it up. Compared to Ethan's purely emotional rant, Mark's article was well-reasoned and more convincing. At the end, he announced that he had called off the engagement with Bella. Netizens were feasting on one bombshell after another. The netizens who had previously supported Ethan now all switched sides, turning on him and cursing him for deceiving them. Ethan was now facing the backlash of his own making. In addition, the news of my kidnapping by Ethan had made the news in London. Some sharp-eyed users discovered that the perpetrator was the same person who had scared Mark's mother into the ICU in the middle of the night and posted it online. People from all walks of life condemned Ethan's crazy behavior. The few remaining users who had supported Ethan no longer spoke up for him. I thought, this is what Ethan gets for his own actions. I remembered the last time I saw Ethan. He wasn't so crazy then. But unfortunately, he didn't listen to my advice and remained stubborn, ultimately leading himself down a criminal path. At the end of November, the news reported that Ethan had been arrested. Oliver, Mark has been fighting a lawsuit for a while now, and he finally got Ethan locked up. Such a relief. I learned from Ben that Mark had been relentlessly investigating the person who had leaked his personal information online. In the end, it turned out that it was indeed Ethan who had leaked it. In court, Mark provided various pieces of evidence against Ethan, including the impact he had on me and his mother, and submitted them all. The court immediately sentenced Ethan. Ethan was now in prison, reportedly for 5 years. I heard that because of all the negative press, everyone was boycotting Sterling Corp, leading to a sharp drop in users. Investors who saw the writing on the wall also pulled their funding. In the end, Sterling Corp didn't make it through November. Oliver, Sterling Corp has gone bankrupt. When Ben told me this news, Vivian and I were at the hospital visiting Mark's mother. Perhaps because Mark had been personally taking care of her in the hospital, Mark's mother was much plumper than when she first arrived in London. She sat on the hospital bed, laughing as she told us stories about Mark's childhood. Mark sat beside her, smiling and chiming in. The evening sun slanted through the glass, shining on each of us. I looked through the glass at the sunset, thinking, this is the final ending for Ethan and Bella. Now one is in prison and the other is bankrupt. And this is all their own doing. December 30th, 2024, evening. To keep that promise, Ben, Vivian, and I flew back from the UK. First, to visit my mother, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. Second, to announce my engagement to Vivian to our friends and family. Yes, I had decided to get engaged. Even though I had been betrayed, I thought, life is about moving forward. Isn't it? The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I heard a lively commotion downstairs. By the time Vivian and I had washed up and gone downstairs, the house was full of friends and family. Vivian and I sat on the sofa as they gathered around us, asking how we were. I looked at their familiar faces and suddenly remembered how, for Bella's sake, I had given up everyone around me and stood by her side. It was because everyone had been against me and Bella back then. Perhaps true love doesn't push you further away from your family, but finds a way to get them to accept the relationship. I looked at Vivian sitting next to me. She was smiling and chatting with my relatives. I suddenly laughed. Why are you so happy all of a sudden? Vivian tilted her head and asked, puzzled. I took her arm and leaned in close to her ear, because a saying came to mind. What saying? With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? New Year's Day, 2025. In the coffee shop. I sat in the coffee shop we had agreed on, quietly waiting for my childhood savior to arrive. I kept looking at the people coming in, trying to get their attention, but I waited from morning until night without seeing her. I also kept calling Officer Miller's phone, trying to get more information, but there was no answer. Excuse me, sir, we're closing. In the end, I didn't see this mysterious savior, even until closing time. I packed up the gift I had brought, a gift intended to thank the savior, and left the coffee shop with questions in my mind. Oliver, I'm here. Vivian, who had come to pick me up, walked over and put a scarf around my neck. It's so cold. You need to stay warm. Seeing the unopened gift in my hand, she comforted me. We can try contacting Officer Miller again tomorrow to see what's going on. Just as she finished speaking, a long car horn and screams from pedestrians came from the end of the street. I guess there had been some kind of accident, but I paid it no mind, letting Vivian lead me by the hand as we slowly walked home. January 3rd, 2025. I had been trying to contact Officer Miller for the past few days, but the line was always busy. My phone rang. It was Ben. Oliver, did you know? I heard Bella was in a car accident a few days ago. I asked around. When the ambulance arrived, the doctor said she was already brain dead. The accident scene was horrific. She was hit while crossing the street. The driver was drunk and ran a red light. I was shocked by Bella's sudden death. I suddenly remembered a time when we were young. Bella was standing by the window, the light shining through, blurring her figure, but her words were powerful, as if they were still ringing in my ears. At that time, she raised her hand in a vow and said with conviction, I, Bella Sterling, swear to the heavens that if I ever betray Oliver Evans, may I choke on my food and be hit by a car when I go out. At that time, A young Oliver hugged Bella and said, "I believe you. I never thought that this vow, which I had almost forgotten, would come true so many years later." January 28, 2025. On the eve of the Lunar New Year, good news came from London, across the ocean. "Oliver, thank you for your help. My mother has a chance now. The hospital has found a suitable kidney donor, and we're waiting for the transplant." Mark, on the other end, was so emotional he was sobbing. I was also in tears on my end. Finally, my young schoolmate could happily welcome the new year with his mother. April 4th, 2025. Ben took me to a cemetery. The tombstone had no name, no photo, but it was already surrounded by chrysanthemums. "Oliver, did you know? The last time I saw her, we were fighting. At that time, I didn't want to see her. If I had known it was the last time, I would never have been so stubborn." Ben covered his face and wept. I hugged him. "Ben, she would want you to be happy," I comforted him. "Ben, we all have to look forward." Yes, we all have to look forward. Ben and I walked away, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand. The setting sun shone on the unmarked tombstone. A butterfly landed on the side, fluttered its wings, and then flew away. April 5th, 2025. I finally received a call from Officer Miller's number. "Hello, is this Officer Miller?" "This is Oliver Evans," I answered excitedly. "I'm sorry, Officer Miller has been transferred. She's not allowed to contact people casually anymore. You probably won't be able to reach her again." It was a strange woman's voice, and she sounded apologetic. "I'm calling you because Officer Miller asked me to. She hoped you and your savior could meet. She probably doesn't want to see me anymore. She didn't show up for our appointment," I said with regret. "I'm sorry to hear that." I later found out that it might not have been convenient for her to meet, the person replied. "I see. Well, thank you. It's a pity, but in the end, I may never know who my savior really was."